Good, good. Here, let me get the camera started here. Oh, there you are. Hey, it's really great to see you guys. I am really excited to get to talk to you today. And I know that this is going to be an interesting, weird little conversation that we're going to have. But before we get started, then I'm just going to let you guys take it here for just a moment. But I love that when you first messaged me about this, you said, I was speaking to one of my human collaborators. And I'm like, when are we going to start having those normal interactions? You know, we're just throwing that in there. We got to distinguish between the human and the AI. So before we get into it too much, I just want you guys to take a moment to introduce yourselves and let us know what we're going to learn about this project, so we can take it from here.
Okay. Well, I guess the looks are coming to me. My name is Mo. I'm a music composer. I just started scoring for film recently. Actually, I have a project due today for the
We'll keep it brief.
PSEC. Yeah, it's for a commercial in the Czech Republic. So yeah, I've got
Nice.
that on my brain after this. And then I'm also a musician. I write songs as Coco Pastel, and I produce everything. And so that's why I'm here with Shahab and Jaime.
Yeah, I'm Shahab Zargari, and like most creatives, I feel like I do a little bit of everything. A little bit of it is trying to see what will stick and what I'm good at, but also honing skills and trying new things. So, I dabble in film, music, um, all kinds of arts. And it's really great to be back. Jaime, you had me on last time, and all we did was talk about the films, and
It was a
funny
blast,
because
but it felt incomplete.
Right. Then you're like, okay, we didn't talk about anything else. I was like, okay, well, we'll come back, and this was the perfect opportunity to do so. So thanks for having me back, man. Seriously.
Yeah, folks, it's such a blast to actually see you, because you folks are powerhouses of creative talent and expression. I love your music. I love what you're creating. And specifically about New Oddities, can we just have a little bit of an introduction here on what Mo called the questions on this album? Because this is a very strange album. This is a very experimental project, but it was created with AI technology, with the assistance of AI technology.
That's correct.
And so, Mo, what were those things that immediately resonated with you when you heard this thing?
Well, okay. At first, when I sent him that random text, I was like, I was listening one by one, and actually, I mean, I don't want to, make it too long, but I actually have questions per song because
Okay.
because this album is just like, so to me it came across as so rich in, like, of course, the AI, the tech, but also the meanings. You definitely use your platform really well, and I was just really curious about, like, each one. I don't think I can ask like one question when it comes to
Well,
the
then
meaning.
let me do this then. Let me kind of set the stage for the listeners, but
Right.
for you two as well. So New Oddities is actually building on the types of music and types of techniques that I've been doing since I was a kid. I essentially started, but this is the first time that an album has my name, right? So it was always under a moniker. It was always under a band name kind of thing. And way back in 1989, I started this project called Kill the Scientist. And it's, and you can go to Spotify and all these, Apple Music, and find Kill the Scientist. And when you do, you'll see almost a direct connection, right? Back then, I was taking cassettes and doing loops and kind of combining sounds and halfway pushing the pause button so it would speed up the tape, and all these different kinds of sampling and remixing. And even now that I'm a filmmaker, I still, when I get into a rut, I pause what I'm doing, and instead of doing something else, I do a fan edit, or where I take like a Star Wars trailer and I put Mad Max music to it, or Willy Wonka and I put this score to it, right? And just again to kind of hone my skills, but while doing something fun. And it's all been a part of this kind of like taking something, sampling it, and reconstructing it, you know.
Mm,
Mm.
Um, so it is a direct extension. So for people just stumbling on it, it's probably very strange and eclectic. But it does kind of. I've kind of been working up to this for the past however many years. So
mm.
That's awesome.
And I think that was remarkably successful because it's not just here's a bunch of tracks put together that are experiments. It is an oral experience from beginning to end. And I think that's what I
mhm.
appreciated about it because you have thematically, right, so much that you want to say, but I think the music itself is sort of helping you along the way with that, even though it is like it's going a million miles an hour. I mean, it does feel like
Mhm.
you're strapped to the seat and you're just going along for the
So
ride.
in a sense, I do feel like the album, especially if you have headphones, especially if you go from beginning to end, it's sort of like an action adventure anime soundtrack, right? Have you ever bought an anime soundtrack where it dips into samples from the movie, right? Where they're like talking or fighting, then it goes back to the music, then it comes back. So
Yeah.
I really do feel like, there's that. I do want to kick it over to Mo for her track by track questions, but before we do, this is exactly how the AI was utilized. So for any of you that have watched documentaries like The Wrecking Crew or The Get Back, the Peter Jackson
Mm-hmm.
documentary with the Beatles, right? Where that was 27 days of them just sitting in the studio going, "What are we doing now? Like, how are we constructing this? No, no, don't do this, do that." That's essentially what I did with the AI software. They were my backing band. They
Mm,
came in, and I was like, this is the style. These are the instruments I want you to use. This is the tempo. This is
Mm.
all the stuff. And then they would jam. They
mm.
would kind of do a get back, but instead of 27 days, 5 seconds later, it would kick out 25 tracks.
Wow.
And I would go through and listen and listen and listen. And then I'd go, oh, you know what? Wait, wait, wait. There's something here. Right. And I knew I wanted to use them all as like the foundation, basic
Mm-hmm.
starting point of these
Mm-hmm.
tracks. I didn't want it to be like, hey guys, this is what it is. No, no, no. That was the jam session, right? So
Mm-hmm.
then with this software, which is linked on the Bandcamp, it's called Soundraw. It's a Japanese company. They were kind of sick and tired of this stock audio platform kind of thing, and they're like, well, why don't we use AI to beef up what you can do? So once I chose a song, then from there I could go, you know what? Wait, I said keyboard, but all this keyboard section, I'm actually going to flip it to guitar.
Mm.
Oh, you know what?
Mm.
This was every four measures. I'm going to make it every eight. And so I had the ability, almost like those Korg apps and Ableton and stuff, where you're able to, or even GarageBand, where you can,
Yeah.
start adding layers. And so I would go in and I would even fine tune the original jam session until it was really where I wanted it to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where the 8 months then came in, where I was working with collaborators, hitting up Mo. There's a lot of tracks that didn't end up on the album, but then it was that human touch, the human spirit, which we
Mm.
layered on. And honestly, I
Mm.
do want to say, Mo, I'm such a fan of Mo's work and her voice. Like honestly, the tracks that she's on this
Ah!
album, I get teary eyed. It's just so beautiful.
That's one of the
Uh,
things, yeah, I wanted to mention
Thanks.
just to interject briefly. Well deserved, by the way, Mo. The the way that you humanize this work in the two tracks is so special because, as you say, there it's not that there's an artificial quality of it, but there is a presentation aspect of it that is balanced out in those songs so beautifully. And I think that was only possible with a very human vocalist.
Mhm.
A very humane vocalist, maybe I should say.
Vocal,
Good
but she did the
performance.
vocals, she did the lyrics, she
Hmm.
did production. I mean, there's stuff on there that was not the AI that she added to. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
mind-boggling.
thank you. I'm like speechless right now. I can't believe that this is happening. I've never been on a podcast. You guys are really kind. Thank you. But yeah, I you could not have picked or texted a better nerdy person, I think, for this, because that is one of the fundamental things about me is I love to embrace technology. I'm a huge nerd and I'm kind of like your kin, Shahab, in terms of like the music side of it, the creative side, embracing technology. So like when you told me that you were working with I was just like, yes. And also, what a genius to like hop on this and like create an album before pretty much it's like popular. So like I applaud you for that. Your mind is
Thank
just
you.
awesome. So yeah.
And it's,
But yeah,
oh, go ahead. I'm
sorry.
sorry. Yeah,
Oh, no, it's okay. I was just gonna dive into my question.
Yeah,
absolutely.
go
It's
for it.
time.
Yeah, so, first of all, that 3rd track, how do you pronounce that?
Okay, so that, and I did that on purpose.
Yeah.
So that is actually the Russian word for yes. It's da.
Oh.
It's like
Oh,
da, da, you know?
Oh, well, I
yeah.
So
feel
I
really
just called it
American.
the one that looked like a chair and an A.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
It's
that's
so
Russian
dumb.
for yes, da.
So sorry to our
And it was
Russian listeners.
and
So
it
Apologies.
was done. So I did it that way so that if Russians are searching on
right.
Spotify, they find it, right?
Man.
The sample that goes throughout was a spoken word poem in Russian that I
Oh,
got from Free Music Archives, which I dipped Free Music Archives a
Mm,
little bit on this album. The net neutrality stuff was from there.
yeah.
But also I
mm,
ended that track with Kalinka, which is an 1800s Russian composer,
Mhm.
wrote that, and essentially what. So there's a few tracks that utilize choir samples. This in 2022, 2023, nobody has CDs in their house anymore. Nobody has CD players, but I do, and I love them. And we put them out for 20 years, right? So I still go to thrift stores and look for CDs. My car still has a CD player, so I'm looking, right? I went to this thrift store. There was a stack of mid 90s Las Vegas junior high choir recital CDs.
Wow.
And I was like,
oh
oh
my
my
god.
God, these people will never hear this album. They'll never come for me for copyright. And the things that I sampled from those albums were from composers that are already dead. So there's no copyright anyway, kind of thing, right? Kalinka, like the guy has been dead for hundreds of years. So anyway, so I hope that answered the question. So it's da.
Da. That was actually one of my major questions, the choir that was going on, because I
Hmm.
was I was thinking that the AI made that. And
Nope.
so I was
That was
I
big.
was
So
floored, I was
so
insulted. Okay.
with no, no,
Were
no,
you
there's
thinking you
no
were going to be
way.
out of a job here shortly? It
Yeah.
was, yeah.
No way, dude.
Oh,
No
that's
way.
another topic of conversation,
Yeah,
actually.
I wanted to wrap up on that because I think it's a valid question, but it is a good counterpoint, and I think we come back to this same idea of humanizing these tools
Mm.
and finding that line. And do you think you achieved that in that section? Because it is a very lively song, but at the end you kind of land it with that choir.
Mhm. Okay, I don't think I can answer that. I think people who listen to it have to answer that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
yes, I made it. I did it.
I agree, I agree.
I don't think I'm allowed to. But just for again, a lot of the album is samples and creatively curated. And by the
Mm,
way, there are certain moments that are quiet, certain moments that are loud, certain vocals that are crisp, and
Mhm.
certain vocals that are muddled and buried. And I kind of made sure to, accent those things so that if it is muddy, we did it on purpose kind of thing.
Mhm. Mhm.
But for that track, that song, I knew that when the AI's drum machine ends, I wanted that last moment of the song, and that really is how that song ends. So I lined that up and didn't edit the rest of it. So the rest of it, going back to wherever I start those choir vocals, that was an uncut, unabridged thing. But like a DJ, I had my hand on the fader, and I would come in and come out to wherever, for certain moments it clashed and it just didn't work. And so, but you listen to it and there's like, there's the guy doing his Russian spoken word, and then the drums does this thing, and then the chords, right? They're doing the thing, and then all of a sudden you hear, and then no more. That was me literally bringing the fader down to 0. Okay, we're done with that. Okay, here we go. We're coming back in with and we're out, and we're back in, and then song's over, loud, busted.
Wow. So it was more like a live performance at the time of putting that moment.
Cool.
It really was.
It's pretty amazing. So to move on to track number 4, which was Big A, Little A. Can you share a bit about how this started for you, how this particular track came to be? And then if Mo has any questions on that one, that would be great.
So, the album looks to the future of humanity and the world and music production, but it simultaneously looks to the past. Using poetry from the 1800s. This specific track is a cover of an 80s track from England. I didn't cover the whole song. When you go back to the original, and I think this was one of the first things I shared with Mo, I believe, where I was like, hey, this is the original, this was the cover, and this is kind of what I'm doing here with this AI stuff. Just, again, as I was selecting the songs and fine tuning them, this track, I was like, it's kind of got this punk rock feel to it. And, in the 90s, when I was starting to get into my own music, the band Crass from England, they were, it was an art collective. They were an anarchist art collective that lived together, made music together. In the beginning, they didn't even know how to use instruments. By the end, like, they're still doing stuff to this day. But the first 2 verses of that song were very 80s England specific, talking about Thatcher and prime ministers and stuff. So it didn't relate. It didn't relate at all. And again, like, thinking of this as like a soundtrack to an unmade anime action adventure, this was the moment where, the unlikely hero is being told, like, just like, forget about everyone else. You do you, because that is what's important. Your happiness is the most important thing. And so that's kind of the background. I don't know if that explained it very well, but yeah, it's a Crass cover.
So
They were Crass put out an album called Penis Envy. As a teenager, that album made me a feminist. All right. Like, that was so seminal for me. I highly recommend it. Just as weird as New Oddities, just as crazy. But very, very influential to me and probably this album. And so I was like, you know what? I think it'll work. And it's funny, this is perfect for a podcast. As I was re-recording the vocals, because I didn't get it right the first couple times.
So it was you. That was my question.
It was me. My
Jamming.
daughter thought I was yelling like at someone over the phone. She's like, "Were you fighting?" I was like, "Oh no, that was an inspirational song. What are you talking about?"
That's great. Mo, was that the one question you wanted to ask? You're good with that one?
Yeah, I was coming up with these questions on a long walk, and I was just like, how many of these songs feature Shahab's voice, actually, to kind of segue?
There's a few. Like, obviously, like, the Depp one does not have me in it. Two Americas does not have me in it. Toro was a remix I did, so it does not have my voice or anything like that on it. That was my beats. Sonification, pontification, that one was the brand new recordings of the black hole that NASA just
Oh my
released.
God,
No
that's amazing.
way.
That's
Because I also wanted to start the album not using AI and end it not using AI, to just have those as bookends, right?
Mhm.
Like, this is
Ugh.
just to kind of, and just those black hole noises, I
Incredible.
think it sets you up. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, this is gonna be a strange journey, so just be warned, kind of thing. But yeah, it
That is
usually
so cool.
like the Martian song and the Venus song.
Yeah.
Those are both my voices. The Venus
Mm.
song is that's the poem from the 1800s
Mm.
by a gentleman by the name of John Mackay. The Martian, explaining infinity over telepathy. That was a poem that I wrote in the 90s, that had never been heard
Mm.
aloud until 2019. There was a local Las Vegas performance art pop-up, I guess you could say, and every month they would show up at a abandoned warehouse and everyone would do whatever. And like, some of it, Vegas, right? So some were Cirque du Soleil performers testing things out for an audience before they actually implement those things. Others were
Wow.
poets and da, da, da. And so for one of these sessions, I had typed this out on a typewriter and I brought the pages, and utilizing everyone's help, we read it aloud, and that was the first time anyone had heard this poem aloud. And I'd written it in the um, uh, aesthetic of E. E. Cummings. And if you're familiar with E. E. Cummings poetry, there was no rhyme scheme. Letters would be on different lines, you know what I mean? And so it was kind of one of these things where the shape on the paper was also part of the poetry, kind of thing.
Mm.
Um, so if someone were to buy it from Bandcamp, the album, and download it, not just stream it, download the files, in with the MP3s is a scan of that poem. So you
Oh,
can
that's
kind of,
great.
that's one of the songs where it's kind of muddy because he's using telepathy. So can you hear the words? Can you
Ah.
Yeah.
not hear the
Yeah.
words? Right.
Mhm.
Um, and so I don't know if anyone will, but I hope people download that PDF and kind of listen to the song as they read it, because then you can follow the shapes that I was looking at as I was singing that, or
Yeah.
singing that. It's more like beat poetry, but yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But it was fascinating to hear that poem along with this really manic sort of, almost like you were saying, video gamey kind of vibe where it was just drilling ahead, full speed ahead. I thought that was
Mhm.
such a wonderful contrast to what he was saying.
Yeah, it definitely was a video gamey vibe. I vividly remember thinking, "I wanna tell Shahab this could be in a video
Yeah.
game." Seriously,
Yeah.
like, just,
Just the right energy. It was
when are
just
you
wonderful.
making a video game, Shahab? You've
I
done it
know.
all except the
So,
game.
well, okay, so I didn't make it, but we do have a game. So a few years ago, my brother and I co-wrote a novel, the only novel I've ever published ever, because they're really hard to do.
Mhm.
And on the website, just as like I don't know, like a fun little like Easter egg or whatever, there's actually a video game. So if you go to prisonbreak2438.com, that has, the synopsis, the, link to buy on Amazon, blah, blah, blah. And the last link is video game. And you can actually beat your little tank, because it's basically a prison break in post-apocalyptic America kind of thing.
Mm.
Anyway, so I've dabbled.
So
But what
cool.
I would like to do, though, have you guys played Immortality? Not to like veer, but talking about
No.
No.
technology. Okay, guys.
Okay.
I think it was first on Steam, but Netflix now has games. I don't know if you know this.
What?
Like,
What?
Oh,
yeah.
the choose your own adventure sort of
Well, they
thing,
have
right?
all these different kinds of things. So they have a Stranger Things Candy Crush app. They have
Oh
like all
my
these different
Oh,
gosh.
wow. I
tie-ins.
didn't know that.
So
Yeah, yeah,
cool.
yeah. So there's one that they bought the rights to, but now, so if you download it on Android or Apple, it's called the Netflix Immortality game. But I think
Huh.
it came
Oh
out
my
before that,
gosh.
dude. So you show up in this thing. It's like you're a video editor, and they go, "Listen, there's this actress. She's dead, and you need to figure out how she died, by looking at the clips from these 3 feature films that never came out. So, The
Wow.
amount of footage
Whoa.
they shot for this blows me away. So there's like Johnny Carson type interview clips. There's rehearsals with them rehearsing the movie. There's table reads. There's actual wink, wink, because this isn't real, right? There's clips from the movies, and then so you get like one or two to begin with, and then as you're playing on the iPad, you can rewind clips, you can fast forward clips, and then when you stop, you can zoom in on this actor and it'll give you another clip with that actor. You can zoom in on this candlestick, it'll
Wow.
give you another flame.
It's
You zoom in
incredible.
on this chair, it gives you another clip with the chair. Dude, and each time you zoom in, that's another clip, another clip. So in the end, you have,
Wow.
I think I've looked it up and I've basically finished the game, but there's like a handful of clips I never found, and I never will because I'm not gonna
Wow.
go through and like zoom in. Dude, it's nuts. It's for mature audiences. There's people are topless and there's sexual situations stuff, but amazing. So I would love to do something like that. I would, but
Mm.
the amount of
You
logistics
need
and
brain power and
You
time
do.
to really,
Yeah.
yeah, invest
I
in something like
shoot
agree.
that.
all of that high quality footage and then the mechanics of the game,
Incredible.
insane.
Man.
So
Yeah.
I'd love to do something like that. And I do think video games are the next storytelling medium, which you brought up, choose your own adventure, or someone did.
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
is kind of what it is, where you're like, okay, well, now you have to make all the branches
Yeah.
and then produce all those,
Yeah.
So I'd love to do that.
And I've talked to folks about this in the past, just this idea of how the audience doesn't know how to be passive anymore. There has to be
Mm.
a component that allows
Mhm.
them a way in other than just entertain me, right? And I think that's what's exciting about what you guys are doing. You're forward thinking in terms of how can technology be incorporated into these kinds of arenas, and especially with the interactive quality of it, there's definitely more on the horizon for you guys. Now, I don't know if we should skip Venus Has a Rebuttal because you talked about it a little bit, but would you like to
Yeah,
talk
we
about
could.
Robotic Pleasures, which is one
Yes,
that you folks collaborated on,
I
and
think we should.
it's
I
time.
think we
It's
should.
time.
I think it's time.
Time. So
Can you
I'm
tell
here.
me how does this come to happen from the beginning of what this piece was to what it ended up being and what that collaboration was like?
So the initial thing. So I met Mo. I think was it 2016.
I think so. I
We
think it's
were
been that
booked at the
long.
same thing, if that makes sense, right? And
Mhm.
so um, that morning, and it was funny because she was like, "Oh, this is just stuff that's like throwaway music. I'm just gonna kind of have fun with you guys." I was blown away. I was like, "What? This is the
Oh,
throwaway
thank
stuff?
you.
I can't believe it!" Right? And I've been a fan ever since. And Mo's
Thanks.
been getting better and at what she does and like honing her craft as well. And I'd always wanted to partner up and do something, but there was never a
I never
situation.
knew. Oh,
And I wasn't going to until there was something that mattered, right?
aw,
And then of the tracks that I had fine tuned and finally got to where it needed the human touch, this one, I was like, dude, this is like totally your style.
Hmm.
And I would love it if, and I told her, I was like, I'm collaborating with a bunch of different people on this, and it's gonna be this thing. And her ears perked up like, AI? Wait, what? And
yeah.
even then, the AI wasn't perfect because we were working on another track, and we'll get to robotic pleasures. I want to kick it to you, Mo, but she was like, "Yeah, I think the beats per minute changed at the end there, so even the AI wasn't perfect. Even the
Yeah.
AI kind of screwed up there." Um, but anyway, so that's where it was. I was like, "Oh, dude, like this, the chords, the beat. I mean, I was like,
Hmm.
this was made for you, Mo. Like
Yeah.
if you're down," and she totally was. So Mo, take it away. What happened from that?
Well, my experience of the whole robotic pleasures thing happening was you sent me the track, and I had a little slight confusion just because this whole AI thing is so new. And I think I remember asking you what was your inspiration for this thing, and then you replied like you, and then you explained to me all the AI
Mm.
stuff because I'm
Mm.
so human. I'm so like Homo sapien that I didn't understand what was happening. And so, like, first of all, thank you so much. Like, I have always looked up to you, but I just don't like to tell people that I look up to them. So I do the vocal fry, but so to like to
That's a good
be
thing.
here.
Yeah, don't blow up anyone's ego.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm a fan. I'm a Shahab fan, definitely. But and actually my explanation of this is going to lead to a question about like songwriting back to you actually because when I first opened up the track, I like to play it over and over and just to make a long process short, I kept hearing like 90s R&B kind of thing and emailed Shahab and I was like, "Are you going to be okay with me doing like a Mariah Carey 90s R&B thing?" And collaborating with Shahab is just so awesome and like free and he just responded like, "I want you to do like whatever comes to mind." And so I laid down these tracks and it was it was a really, really wonderful opportunity for me to like practice certain things in production and it was very fun. And what the message that ended up coming out of me was kind of like bouncing off his title, which is Robotic Pleasures. And I was like, this could be either inspiring or like really nasty. So I was like, robotic pleasures. So and so, like, my mind kinda went to more of, like, the serious route, and it got me thinking about the times that we're living in, like, post-COVID and, like, isolation. I'm sure we've all heard everywhere, and my mind kinda went to, like, love, and I can't really quote myself right now. I have a poor memory with these things, but I think I said, "Oh, love is like
Love is
its
its own
own invention."
dimension. Yes,
Right?
I love that
It's
line.
not a new invention.
Yeah.
I and because I always heard this term like, love is your perception, and I'm sure that someone can show me can defend that point of view to me, and I'll end up agreeing. But my point of view is I don't necessarily think love itself is a perception. I think there's definitely hallmarks of love, like things that make it love and um all kinds of love, not just romantic love, like family love, brother love. And so that's what came out of me for this song. I was like, I think we need love, man.
And I would only add that this was so incredible to hear because it answered a lot of my questions that I had about this
Mm,
collaboration. Shahab laying down the bedrock of it and then Mo, running away with it. I love that lyrically it feels like it's from that time period. It feels like the sort of like anthemic qualities of like those songs in the 90s were there, but just
yeah.
the R&B ness of that. Not just the vocals, which are phenomenal and really supported that, but lyrically, that those
Mm.
kinds of choruses were just so beautiful and very spot on. So I got to applaud you guys on that. But any other thoughts on Robotic Pleasures?
I would just like to say that it kind of reminded me of, and not necessarily the sound, but just like the feeling of it. So there was, if you're familiar with Robotech and Macross and all of those, there was a limited series called Macross Plus. I think it was late 90s, maybe early 2000s. It was like one of the first anime TV shows that utilized computer graphics kind of thing. And
Mm.
the whole um, story kind of, hangs on this artificial intelligence singer, right? So it's like this pop singer. It's like a Madonna, but she's fake and she's a hologram. I guess kind of like this is way before gorillas or anything like that, right? And so it was like this whatever, and then like sorry, spoiler warning, but that you quickly find out it wasn't really AI, it was a human that was putting on this
What?
neural link, and she would put in her brain, and she wasn't even singing, like she's like kind of like meditating and making the hologram do the things she wants it to do. And it was like a pop star. And honestly, if someone made a fan edit of Macross Plus with Robotic Pleasures, it would fit. It would fit so
Oh
well.
yeah, yeah. I
That's what
think
And honest,
Ariana Grande is, actually. I don't know if you knew
a
that.
hologram?
She has a
Aha.
neural link. She's not real. She's from Wisconsin.
she's.
Like
I support this theory. I want to know more. Let's put it in the podcast description. The world needs to know. Uh, um, oh, I totally lost my train of thought. That was
Sorry.
amazing. But so, regarding goodbye net neutrality, can you
Mhm.
tell me a bit about this particular recording?
So again, you know, once the final track was realized, or I'm sorry, not the final track, but the backbone of each track, then came the, like Mo was saying, like listening to it over and over again, like what would fit this, you know?
Mhm.
This time it wasn't a cover song. This time it wasn't. I was like, it's kind of um got these things, and in fact, on that one, I marked that I wanted them to have human voice as one of the instruments, and so
Mhm.
sprinkled throughout there are all these little "let's go," and these little things. I'm like, oh, this is kind of like a call to action kind of situation.
Mm.
And I have a feeling we've kind of already lost the net neutrality, um,
Mhm.
especially in the United States, kind of uh, battle. And in fact, the sound bites that I got again was from the Free Music Archive, and it was the people who ran Free Music Archive that were like, "Hey, we're just gonna," it was almost like a podcast. We're going to talk about net neutrality here. Like, what is it? Why you should
Mm.
care? Da da da. And it was this, like, it was called the Net Neutrality Pack, and they wanted people to download it, use it, put it on YouTube, do whatever they
Mm.
wanted with it. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do what I want with it because I do feel strongly about this.
Mhm.
Um, and in fact, one of my friends on TikTok, who's this like huge like Web 3.0 kind of lady, like
Mhm.
like that was the track that she gravitated towards, and
Mhm.
she did a reaction video on TikTok where every time the guy says something, she like looks in the camera. She's like, okay, okay, you
Oh.
shouldn't care what your ISP thinks of that website. It was cool. It was cool.
Oh
So
my
that's
gosh.
where that came out. So again, like royalty free samples, something that I'm really passionate about. And again, kind of going through this fake anime, like that's
Mhm.
that part of the story kind of thing.
Yeah, I didn't really have a question for this one. It was a comment. I was learning so much because I didn't know about the net neutrality issue, and
Mm-hmm.
I actually
Mhm.
listened to this track like 3 times in a row, and I was like, I feel like that was a TED Talk podcast
Mm-hmm.
song,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the
But it
first
was,
of its
See,
kind.
okay, but here, let me also say
yeah.
this. So, again, there are moments, especially when Mo is on the track, where it's just like a professional singing, right? I am not a professional singer. Um, but for this one and a few of the others, one of the things that this album really, really plays with a lot is cadence, right? Like, think about the Loki one. Like, that's
Mhm.
Neil Gaiman just talking about the myth of Loki, right? And he's a writer, he's British. So there, like, just already his cadence was already sing-songy. I didn't
Mhm.
really have to, you know what I mean? And so same with this. Like,
Oh.
how can I? They're just talking. They're talking about net neutrality, but how does it fit within these bars and
Mm.
this, bridge to the chorus? Like, how does that fit? And they're just talking kind of thing. So it, the album does explore cadence of the
Mm.
human voice, which I think it is a nice thing to do since the rest of the backbone was artificially created.
Mhm. But the balance was created, and you put that in place to ensure that there was that conversation, and it wasn't like AI is guiding us, but more this is a boat that we're in together. AI
Hmm.
is the boat. We are telling it where to go. We're still in
And
control. Would that be?
surprisingly, there's a lot of conversation on Twitter, online, about artificial intelligence and
Mhm.
art.
Mhm.
Um, when it's illustrations, people are really getting heated. With
Mhm.
Mhm.
writing, essays, books,
Yeah.
code, people are kind of like, right? There's a lot of implications. There's a lot of, like, it's like, is it beyond plagiarism? You know what I mean? Like, all of that had to come from somewhere, and
Yeah.
that someone is not getting paid, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But when
Mhm.
I interact with these conversations and I bring up the fact that we utilized artificial intelligence in a new album, everyone's been really nice. They've all been
Mm,
like, "Oh, well, that's okay." I'm like, "Oh, all
yeah.
right. Well, then I guess we're good."
Yeah,
Like,
so
no
that
one's pissed about it.
yeah,
It's nice.
and this is a wonderful opportunity to explore this a bit deeper
Mhm.
because I I'm really torn about this, especially with the AI issue with the images. I run
Mhm.
a small lit journal now as of last year, and I initially wanted it to be a companion with the AI images. So I was using them as prompts and trying to see if we could generate a conversation, much like, what you guys have done here. But the more that I started using the images, the more I felt this sort of internal guilt of like something doesn't sit right with me. Because as you said, the images just kind of feel a bit different. But for you
Mhm.
guys as musicians,
Mhm.
how does this land with you? And what's your stance on it now? Do you feel
So
that
let me,
there's a threat or a
yeah, let me
concern?
let me start on that one. So, and I might have had this conversation with you, Mo. Tell me if I hadn't, but
Mm.
We had a slight
we have.
conversation.
So
Yep. Yep.
the C chord, the G chord, like music, and like you know, I can't remember who said it, but someone famously quoted, as saying, "All the songs have already been written."
Mm,
And
Yeah.
so what can you do to further that conversation to whatever? And so the way I looked at it, especially for this album, and this really was an experiment, to see where things are going with it.
mm,
Honestly, with you know anyone could have had a jam session and come up with any of these things. Like the drums
Mhm.
mhm,
aren't doing anything weird. So um, I don't know. I don't feel the same guilt
mhm,
that does come with a lot of the art based AI, and I think maybe art can take a look at how music utilizes it, and kind of like as a tool, like using Chat GPT to put the
Mhm.
code that you wrote just so that it can check it and tell you where your errors are. I think that's totally okay. I think that's
mm,
a good use of the artificial intelligence. I don't know, Mo. What do you think?
Okay, at first, when we talked about it, I was feeling a little unsure about it, definitely more on the negative side at first,
mhm,
and I can only speak, Jaime, from the musician's perspective.
Mhm.
I having this conversation, I can see how difficult it would be, or we would have to come up with some unique collaborative ways to incorporate AI and art.
mhm,
I'm not an artist myself, so I can't speak, but doing this album with Shahab changed my whole perspective because and just sitting with the thought of AI and music has changed me because I now kind of see and people have mentioned like Reddit posts and stuff like that on that I read that we're kind of living in a potentially a new enlightenment era where
mm,
and now I view AI as like a another medium to work
mm,
with as an artist. Like if you're a painter, you can work with like different mediums and the crazier the better and the more legendary you become. I
mhm,
kind of view AI as that now. Like
mm,
how creative can you get? It's a new era like even
yeah.
with so
And so from the user end, it's not really a problem. I think the difficulty really just comes down to people getting paid who are feeding the information.
Mhm.
I mean,
yeah.
that's really sort of in my opinion, because I'm with you guys. I wish that we could have technology that isn't tainted by something that
Hmm.
capitalism is guiding into. Oh, you got to
Which
make money, so you can't pay the artists. So
so
Yeah.
and
yeah.
I think if you utilize it, like one of the conversations Mo and I also had early on was, obviously this is a very experimental album,
Mm,
and so the things we did aren't going to happen on in pop music, aren't going to happen whatever. So but
Hmm.
what the way I looked at it was, a lot of times someone records something on a 4 track and then they give it to their 5-piece band. And they're like, this is kind of where we're going. This is what we need to do. Now, can you make a drum part? Can you do a bass
mm,
part? Can you do this?
Mhm.
So using like, hey, this is the thing that AI spit out. Can we do it as a real band? Can we really do it? Or art. I mean, we've done albums, films. There's been times where I've been like, this is your reference, dude. Like I know I'm hiring you and I'm paying you to do this cover art, but I need this. This is the idea, you know.
Mm,
So utilizing it as a tool to get to, you know, what you're going to do. You know, then you go into the studio and you pay the engineer and you pay the
mhm,
musicians who are there, you know. And so
Mm.
I think using it as a tool and not as the end result. And that's kind of also this album, right? Like we
mhm.
didn't just, and I say I didn't just spit out some AI jams and go, here's my album, thank you very much, which is
Mhm.
the problem with these AI things, you know, the art things. I mean, you're
Yeah.
just like, oh, hey,
Mhm.
here's my
Right,
thing. Okay,
right.
well, use it as a inspiration and do your own thing, and
Mhm.
then it's yours. You know.
Oh, that's
That's
beautiful.
true.
Yeah.
What if you paint over an AI image?
So here's a little
Scan
secret:
over.
most, you know, most artists they do, you know, these huge murals on the walls. They put a projector. They plug in a projector real
They start
Ah.
quick.
with
You
something.
know, a lot of artists they
Mm.
draw the basic lines, scan it in, and then they go to Procreate on their iPad, and then they do all the fancy stuff. So
It's a mock-up.
it's not,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
unheard of. You know.
Mm. So
Yeah, a lot of musicians oh, sorry.
oh, no, go
Yeah.
ahead. Yeah.
A lot of musicians are using it mostly to speed up workflow is
Mm.
what I'm seeing, and
Yeah,
that's
use it as a
just
tool.
mhm.
We
Like,
should.
you
Mhm.
know, you were gonna come up with the chord progression anyway is the
Mm.
argument, so might as well just have this AI where you can drag and drop it, you know, experiment faster, so
Right.
get your money faster, I guess, if there is money in the music industry right now.
Yeah.
So,
But I
yeah.
do also want to thank Mo because um, she basically did a lot of heavy lifting on two of these tracks, and even still has shared the crap out of the album.
Mhm.
I've done collaborations with tons of people over many, many decades, and a lot of the times people just act like your PR department's got to share it kind of thing. And I'm like, wow,
Oh,
man, like we worked on that together. Like I really
Mhm.
care about this, and you don't want to share it. Like even
Yeah.
huh,
you know.
oh,
And so Mo, thank you. Like you've shared it like 1,000 times, and I'm just like,
oh, thanks.
I don't know what
I
I've
thought
done to
that was
deserve
standard, though.
that. You know? It's not. It's not.
Yeah.
It's kind of like,
Guys, come on, just share.
So
Yeah, a
you're a
lot of
part of
people
it.
don't know a lot of people don't know how to share, though. I that's what I
That's
realized.
true.
mm,
That's true.
Like, how to
very true.
yeah, but
So,
learn to share.
lastly, I want to just ask you guys while I have you here on this topic, the benefits of collaboration and the things that we must hold on to as we're reaching out to collaborators and beginning a kind of partnership like the one that you folks had. What are some things that you can pass on to folks who are looking to have a successful creative collaboration like the one you folks did?
Oh, boy.
That's a good
That's
question.
a really good question.
I would say, I mean, there's a lot, and I'm still learning.
Same, I think that's why I can't answer either. It's a
I,
learning process.
yeah, I think where I'm at now, I'm kind of done chasing, if that makes any sense. Like
Mm,
there's, you know, certain people that I'm like, we got to collab, and then they just can't do it or can't. Like, you know what? At this point, if you can't do it, I'm
Mm,
moving on. You've moved on, obviously, so I'm going to move on. So I
mhm,
used to really like, you know, pine for these things. Like, you know what? Can't do it.
mhm,
Um, but I think beyond that, you know, set expectations, set like who's bringing what to the table,
mm,
like first. Where is this going? What is it doing? So there's no surprises.
mhm,
And also, you know, treat your collaborators with kindness. You know, I sent Mo a care package, which
mhm.
was not nearly
yes.
enough for the beautiful vocals that she lent to this album. I cry every time I hear these things, right? And so it was not enough, but still, like, you know, you share the love, show the love, and that way they at least appreciate you for having brought them into the fold and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would say just form genuine connections, you know, genuine friendships, and that has worked out for me so far. Like, I genuinely like you guys, and I'm meeting you for the first time, but you have a nice smile on Google Meet, and we could probably be friends. So,
Well,
that's
yeah,
how I think. It's pretty simple.
Oh,
I
and you
think
know what?
it
Actually,
goes a
I'm
long
going to
way.
thank you too, Jaime. I'm going to thank you too
Yeah.
because the music video for Robotic Pleasures was based on a video that you made
What?
completely from pixels. Like you made a
Oh,
thing,
yeah.
and so every clip in Robotic Pleasures is a pixels clip.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Yeah,
Wow.
so you were the
Oh,
inspiration for that video.
that makes my day.
Yeah, and thanks for having me on here, rando
So
person.
you guys, I just really want to thank you for your time and for sharing a lot of these insights on the collaborative process. But you really are tremendously talented, driven people, and so it's always incredible to get this out into the world so that folks know what you're all about and what you're doing. But also, it's amazing to see brown people kicking ass and doing cool things. So
Woo!
this has been really special for me because now I feel revitalized. I feel like we can go out into the world and keep doing great stuff, especially in terms of what you're doing, Shahab, with bringing representation and making sure that the issues are talked about in the art and using it as a tool for vocalizing what's going on in the world. And Mo, I want to know what's going on with the spaceship back there. I want to know how you're making this beautiful synth pop that I'm just completely in love with. It's remarkable. And you folks are just an inspiration. I'm just so thankful that the podcast allows me to connect with you guys because you're incredible. And this album is really something special. So I urge everyone to
Thank you.
go and check it out
Thank you.
as soon as humanly possible. Have I rambled enough? Is there any closing thoughts that you guys would like to add?
Well, oh my God, I should have mentioned this sooner, but real quick fun fact about the album that I forgot to mention. It says mixed and mastered by Milan, but in line with this, I did mix it and I did master it, but I used specifically a mastering program that's automated
Mm.
for this.
Oh.
Yeah, it's called Aria Mastering, and I see we're running out of time, but basically what you do is you upload your track to Aria Mastering, and there's a robotic arm somewhere in a studio in Atlanta that uses real hardware, analog
Oh,
hardware, runs your song through it, and it tweaks it. And so that's what you're hearing for both Loki and Robotic Pleasures.
That is
wow.
So,
insanity. That is pure
yeah.
insanity, and I love it.
Had to throw it in there. Sorry I didn't mention it
I'm
sooner.
glad you did though.
Yeah.
It just brings it all together. Even the finishing touches had an artificial hand in there. But it's
Mhm.
so beautiful and so poignant. But folks, I really once again want to thank you for this album. But Mo, I hope that we get to chat a little bit more down the road, get to know more about your work and how you do your stuff. And Shahab, I know I'm just going to have to see you again soon so that we can talk about whatever awesome thing you're conceiving because
Thanks,
life is
man.
good and it's
And
great to see.
keep it up.
Yes.
You're doing the great work too, man. Seriously.
Yeah, love the podcast. Love it.
Thank you. Thank you guys. I love hanging out and getting to learn from you. So we'll leave it there, but check out the album, folks. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.